celebrating 30 years of phenomenal trend forecasting. Here's Gerald Celente with today's trends in the news.
Hi, this is Gerald Celente. It's Wednesday, August 14th, 2019, a day that will live in economic infamy. The warning signs are there. The Greatest Depression has begun. But let's take a look at the markets. Here's the headline from the Financial Times today relative to yesterday's markets. U.S. delay on China consumer goods tariffs sparks relief rally in equities. Oh yeah, relief rally. You know what that was.
Bullshit!
You got it. Bullshit. They always use this trade war baloney. As I've been saying, that's all it is. It's bigger than that. Dow tanks 800 points in worst day of 2019 after bond market sends recession warnings. It's not a recession warning. It's the Greatest Depression warning. They're all way behind the curve on this. Don't believe me? How about looking at the print? Here is your March Trends Journal, 2019. The Greatest Depression. All the facts are there, why we're going in that direction. From CNBC, stocks plunged 800 points Wednesday in the Dow Jones Industrial Average, worst performance of 2019 after the bond market flashed a troubling signal about the U.S. economy. Investors worried about the state of the economy rushed to long-term safe haven assets, pushing the yield of the benchmark 30-year Treasury bond to a new record low on Wednesday. Today. That's why people are going into gold. That's why you have the gold bull run, and it's running. Gold is up 20% since I call the beginning of the gold bull run. Bank stocks led the decline as it gets tougher for the group to make a profit lending money in such an environment. Bank of America and Citigroup fell 4.6% and 5.3% respectively, while JP Morgan dropped 4.2%. The financial sector dipped into correction territory, down more than 10% from a recent high. We're looking at negative yields, negative rates. This is unprecedented, where you got a bunch of negative clowns running the show. You got the dirty, filthy, rotten scum banksters that are destroying the world in front of us. We got to keep pumping in that monetary methadone to keep the bull running so the hedge funds could get bigger and the private equity groups could steal and buy more. And the gamblers on Wall Street could gamble more. And the multinationals could grow bigger. We need more cheap dough. It's not working. There have been 5 inversions of the 2-year and 10-year yields since 1978, and were all precursors to a recession. But they say there's a significant lag. Oh, that's right. We're hearing from Credit Suisse. Oh, they're in trouble too, aren't they? Only 30,000 banking jobs ripped out of the system since April, and more to come. Yep. A recession occurred on average 22 months after the inversion, Credit Suisse shows. You know what that is?
Bullshit!
You got it. Bullshit. The recession is already underway. The Great Depression has begun. Hey, and Trump, boy, he doesn't like what's going on. He's going after the feds. Spread is way too much as other countries say thank you to clueless Jay Powell and the Federal Reserve. Germany and many others are playing the game. Crazy inverted yield curve. We should easily be reaping big rewards and gains, but the Fed is holding us back. We will win. Guess what? You will lose, Scotzone. It's over. Game over. Fight's on. Oh, they're going to pump this up. It's going to go up for a while. We aren't going to win. They are going to win. The we he's talking about are the we that they gave all the money back to in the we's tax cuts. Yeah, you remember the we's tax cuts when they wee-weed all over us with their trickle-down theory? Shares of Macy's tanked more than 13% to their lowest level in a decade after the retailer posted second quarter earnings. It's going to get a lot worse. Retail, real estate. These are the sectors that are going to get really depressed when the Greatest Depression is finally recognized. And there's a lot more going down, but there's opportunities to go up, and we're going to bring them to you. Going on, China's industrial output slowed in July from a year earlier. It was only its weakest number in 17 years. Germany's negative GDP print, which raised the risk of Europe's largest economy, is on the verge of falling into recession. Oh, it's wonderful in Italy. Let's go to Greece. Yeah, the whole place is going down. And cheap dough, quantitative easing, ain't going to work. Oil prices sank nearly 4%, Brent crude. You know why? Because they're not buying the stuff, and they're producing more than you need. Here's a Financial Times story for you. Investors go through looking glass world of negative yields. I've talked about this before. We're going to keep talking about it again because it's unprecedented. Bonds worth $13 trillion, about a quarter of the debt issued by governments and companies around the world, are currently trading with negative yields. That means prices are so high that investors are certain to get back less than they paid via interest and principal if they hold the bond to maturity. They are, in effect, paying someone to look after their money. The spread of negative yielding debt has raised profound question about the extraordinary lengths central bankers have gone to in a bid to revive the economy over the past decade. In a bid to revive the economy over the past decade, which they have not. They've only enriched the filthy rich, the Buffetts, the Bezos, the Gates, and all of the other rest, the 27, according to the Oxfam report, that have more dough than half the world's population combined. Yep. Switzerland. Their rates are now a minus 0.75. Nothing to do with trade wars. Want some other facts? Here we go. Indian passenger vehicle sales suffer 31% fall in July. That's right. Indian vehicle sales slumped last month as an intensifying economic slowdown drags what was considered one of the most promising car markets through one of its worst slumps. It was the worst month in a dismal spell during which sales fell 20% or more for 4 consecutive months. Sales have failed to increase for more than a year. And GDP growth, it's at a 5-year low. So, what are they going to do? Is the Fed going to lower interest rates? More push from Trump? Well, consumer price rise fuels Fed debate on interest rates. Wall Street Journal. U.S. consumer prices, including airline tickets and fruit and vegetables, rose last month, adding further fuel to the debate over how vigorously the Federal Reserve loosens monetary policy. You know what this is. Bullshit. It's not going to make any difference. They're going to lower them. Trade war turns U.S. public against China. That's right. They found that 60% of Americans have an unfavorable view of China compared with just 26% who held a positive view. This marked a sharp increase in Americans who viewed China in a negative light compared with 2018, not too far long ago, when 47% had an unfavorable view of China. About 24% regard China as the greatest threat to the United States in the future, on par with Russia. Do you know who the greatest threat to the United States is? You ready? The United States. The lying little cowards, freaks, and fools that we call politicians. The Washington gang. The central banksters, the federal central banksters, the United States is the greatest threat to the United States. The people running and ruining the show, the liars, cowards, freaks, and fools, the repulsivekins and the dummocraps, the murderers and thieves, that kill millions, that cost us trillions, and steal scores of trillions so they could shovel it off to their friends in the name of quantitative easing and too big to fails and bailouts, anathema to capitalism. Things are getting better. Don't be so negative, Celente. Prices fall in world's largest cities. Commercial property prices in major cities around the world tumbled in the second quarter amid signs of slowing global growth. Wall Street Journal. Mortgage debt in U.S. hits record, eclipsing 2008 peak. U.S. budget deficit already exceeds last year's total figure. Look at these stupid bastards, and I gotta be equal, and bitches that are stealing our money, increasing the debt so they raise our taxes from your city to your state to your federal government so they could give their slimy little friends jobs. Imbeciles and morons call them bureaucrats. That's all they're doing. They should all the nations, all the cities, all the states should be doing everything they can now with the greatest depression on the doorstep to cut expenses. But you know what they're going to do? They're going to screw us. They're going to raise our taxes, you watch, in one way or another. Fear of populist return sparks big drop in Argentine currency. Yeah, the currency, the peso, is down about 25% this week. The equity markets are down about 40% this week. Populist? How about they had a freaky little jerk in there that the mainstream business media and all the politicians loved? He's a businessman. Macri got sown FU. That's what he did to Argentina. Oh, yeah. Let's see the way they write about this. The unexpectedly strong showing by Mr. Fernandez, who ran against him, whose running mate is former President Christine Kirchner, prompted speculation that market-friendly President Mauricio Macri will lose the election in October. Market-friendly, huh? Yep. High unemployment, inflation of more than 50%, and they're in a deep recession. They're in a depression. But that's the way they write it. Investors are concerned that if Mr. Macri loses the upcoming vote, it could threaten the economic stability that his government has championed. Hey, champion's one thing, winning's another thing. The government that he's running has brought the country into a deep recession, and to go on, and the country's record $56 billion IMF bailout, which Mr. Fernandez has vowed to renegotiate $56 billion borrowed from the International Mafia Federation. We want our money. You're going to put in what they call austerity measures. You got it? You're going to steal every penny you can from the people and give it to us. Get rid of their benefits and their pensions and bring their retirement age till after they die. You got it? This year's gains for Hong Kong's Hang Seng wiped out amid growing protests. It was going over there in Hong Kong, closed the airport for 2 days. This is big. Their market's down now into correction territory. China, this is the Western bank's Asian hub. They're going to blow it out of there. That's right. Goes back to that about, what about China and the U.S. relationships? Blaming the United States, by the way, for fueling these protests. It's going to get worse. 7 million people in Hong Kong versus 1.4 billion. I'm not good at math, but you can figure that one out. China wins, the people loses. And what else do we have here? Beijing sees early signs of terrorism as protesters close Hong Kong airport, blames America. Guatemala poll poses test for U.S. migrant deal. They got a new guy who just won a conservative, and he's not going along with that deal that Trump just signed with the former president that designates Guatemala as a third country or buffer zone to take in migrants trying to reach the United States. Before the election, Mr. Giamatti, that's the guy who won, said, quote, Guatemala is not willing to be a safe third country. If we cannot serve our own, imagine serving strangers. Imagine serving strangers. Human waves, our top trends, one of them for 2019, this is going to accelerate as the Great Depression worsens, the Greatest Depression. Check these numbers out. 59% of the population of Guatemala live in poverty, a factor that, together with violent crime, which killed about 4,500 last year, has prompted many to emigrate. Guatemala, El Salvador, Nicaragua. Go around the world. South Africa, Sudan, Yemen, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Algeria. People wanting to leave, get away from the poverty, the corruption, and no chance for a future. And moving across the world, anger flares in Kashmir after India moves to avert backlash. India tightens Kashmir's security. This is a big one. India decided, hey, we're going to rip up that 1947 deal that basically gave Kashmir autonomy, and we're taking them over. Pakistan says, no, that's ours. And they have a battle going on there for quite some time that's already taken about 50,000 lives over the last decade. You have two nuclear-powered countries now facing each other off in a pending war. And I read to you how India's economy is going down. Pakistan's economy is down and out. When all else fails, they take you to war. Add it up. I've said this before, I'll keep saying it again. Trade wars, currency wars, Greatest Depression, World War. History is repeating itself. Taliban gains weakened U.S. hand in Afghan pullout talks. And they got more land now than they had since any time since after the United States invaded them. They're controlling more of the country. Here's what Trump said. I want to get out of this crazy wars that we should have never been in, he said late last month. And he's 100% right. But crazy Trump is starting more crazy wars, ramping it up against Iran. Look what he's doing with Venezuela. Promised to pull those troops out of Syria but now he's made a deal with Turkey to keep him in there and see what they could work out. So on some fronts he says it, but by their deeds you shall know them. And his deeds so far on this front have added up to 0. But here's my forecast. Before the 2020 election, peace with Afghanistan and a peace treaty with North Korea. And finally, study blames disturbing rise in teens who need glasses on excessive screen time. You know why they call them handhelds? Because everybody's masturbating in public. That's right. Don't look up, don't look out, don't look anywhere. According to the report released, eye care company Scrivens Opticians, the percentage of 13 to 16-year-olds in the UK who need glasses has nearly doubled over the past 7 years. Researchers theorize that this significant increase in eye problems among young people is likely linked to excessive time spent staring at screens, which can lead to eye strain, short-sightedness, and blurred vision, and a blurred mind. And a word of caution. This is time to prepare, prevail, so you could prosper. We're going to keep providing more and more information on what to do, how to do, what we suggest, and what you should look for. And very important to stay tuned to our Trends in the News broadcast podcast every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And you're going to be getting a lot more Trends Journal information from every platform that we can to give you to help you stay ahead of the news, on top of the trends, and seize the opportunities and avoid the dangers. This is Gerald Celente, and that's some of today's Trends in the News.